Hello, everyone. My name is Maria, and my project is on California's Proposition 187, a 1994 ballot measure that targeted undocumented immigrants. I chose this because it shows how fear and racism can get turned into actual law and how the Latinx community fought back. Proposition 187 was created in 1994 to deny undocumented immigrants access to schools, hospitals, and other public services, made it illegal for kids without papers to go to school, and it wanted teachers and doctors to report people they thought were undocumented. Governor Pete Wilson used it as part of his re-election campaign, saying it would save taxpayer money, but really it played into racist fears about immigrants. The law passed, but it was stopped in court. Even though it never took full effect, it left lasting damage. The early 90s were tough economically. People were scared about jobs and money. Instead of addressing those real problems, politicians blamed immigrants, especially Mexicans. Pete Wilson built his campaign on fear, saying undocumented people were draining the economy. Prop 187 became a symbol of who belonged in California and who didn't. That's what made it so significant. It showed how quickly fear can turn into law and how easily immigrant communities can become scapegoats. The community response was powerful. Families were terrified. People stopped going to doctors or sending kids to school. But out of that fear came strength. Students walked out of classrooms. Protests filled Los Angeles, and Latinx activists started organizing. This moment pushed thousands of young people to become politically active for the first time. In the long run, Prop 187 backfired. It actually inspired the Latinx community to get louder and fight for their rights. The people in power were the state government, especially Pete Wilson. Immigrant families had zero say. Prop 187 shows how the system itself, not just individuals, can push oppression. When I looked it up, most mainstream history sources barely mentioned the protests or student walkouts. They talk about it like it was just some policy issue, but they erased the human side, the women, kids, and workers who were directly affected. That's why learning from this Chicanx studies perspective matters. We see the real people behind the headlines. The first concept is nativism. It's the idea that only people born here are the real Americans. Prop 187 pushed that message hard. It made immigrants out to be dangerous or lazy, like they did not deserve to belong here. The campaign even used slogans like "Save Our State," which made immigrants sound like invaders. That's nativism in action. Fear of change and an attempt to protect white American identity. The second concept is institutional oppression. That means when the system itself, like the government or laws, treats a group unfairly. Prop 187 is a clear example because it tried to make discrimination legal. And it's not just one racist person, it's a whole structure built on exclusion. From a decolonial perspective, we see that this law came from a mindset that values borders and control over people's actual lives. The last concept is belonging and solidarity. Prop 187 made a lot of people, even US-born Mexicans, feel like they didn't belong. But it also created unity. People from different backgrounds, Latinx, Black, Asian, came together to protest this injustice. It's a reminder that solidarity can grow even in moments of hate. I don't believe I ever learned about Prop 187 in high school, not even once. And it just says a lot about how our education system hides stories that make America look bad. Reading historian as a curandera made me think about how learning this history is a form of healing. Ethnic studies lets us center the people who were erased and actually understand how these events shape our lives. It changes how we see American history, not just as a progress, but as struggle, survival, and resistance. The same fear we saw in 1994 is still around. You'll hear it in the way people talk about DACA or the border, like immigrants are the problem. Prop 187 might have died in court, but its ideas are still alive in politics. That's why learning this matters. To recognize when history repeats itself and to stand in solidarity before it's too late. This is my discussion question. And these are my sources. Thank you for listening.